Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. We are back with a review show of the weekend's Allianz National Football League action. It is myself, Aaron Prendergast, joined here by Seamus Brady from Clogher to review all the weekend's Allianz National Football League action. I wasn't away in Prague for the last week or so unfortunately we didn't get around to doing a preview show. It was a very early flight on Wednesday, so didn't quite get the time to do a preview show and all the rest. I tried to watch a bit of Dublin Armagh, plenty, you know where you are. There's always Irish pubs somewhere. And I actually got to see a bit of Dublin Armagh, but I was very happy to leave at half-time. And, because it wasn't good. But, Mr. Seamus, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Looking forward to jumping into another episode here. Lots to talk about.
100%, yeah. And we'll be getting into the chat about the rules as well and all that crack. Because, plenty of discussion around it. But look, we'll start with the games, obviously, and we'll crack on with Armagh versus Dublin, because there were a few people who tweeted me and even DM'd me and everything else, being like, why did you not do a match reaction in this game and discuss it, blah, 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 thinking I was going missing. No, look, I was away, in fairness. I didn't even get to predict this game as well, so you don't even know what my prediction was. I'm not going to lie. I think I might have predicted a Dublin win here, to be honest. I thought we would just with the momentum that we had, but look, Armagh were superb, absolutely brilliant. Finishes as an 8-point game, and in many ways, I think that flatters Dublin. Like Dublin were, I think, 9 points down, maybe at half time, or something kind of that effect. But it felt like Armagh could have been 15, 16 points in front. Like they absolutely dominated Dublin in the first half. Dublin just couldn't keep a hold of the ball. It was like they were just strangled. They just couldn't do anything right. And it was largely down to how well Armagh were, in fairness. Like, you do have to give them credit for that.
Yeah, I think we've seen with both of these teams now that Dublin have had a performance that was kind of this poor, especially in the first half. Now both of these teams have shown us kind of the two extremes of what they're capable of. Like Armagh, at the same time as Dublin were poor, Armagh were very, very good. And like you look at the goal from Barry McCambridge and the beautiful pass by Rafferty into him, and like Armagh were showing the variety to their attacks. Some lovely 2-pointers, especially the one from Oisin O'Neill sticks out to me. Like they were showcasing their weapons a lot in this game, Armagh. And yet Armagh have had performances that have been really, really poor. Dublin have also had performances that have been fantastic, like the one going down to Kerry and beating them down in Tralee for the first time since 1982. So it's a really, really interesting one. It's kind of hard to know where you're putting both of them. And it was the point that I was making to Matthew on my show there on Sunday evening was like, how much does consistency matter to managers anymore? Is it just like what we're capable of getting to? Like, is it that internally in your own camp that you know that you're better than this? Like, will Desi walk away raging, or will Desi go, bad day at the office. We know that we're capable of what we showed in Tralee. We know we're capable of what we showed against Derry and Croke Park, etc., etc. We know that we're not that team that went out against Armagh. What would you think? Would you think that consistency matters to the level that it has in the past?
Yeah, it's like it's an interesting one. Like looking at Desi's comments, full time, like in his post-match interview, he said it was don't think I've ever heard Desi so annoyed or so angry in a post-match interview. Like he said, it was atrocious. Yeah. He said it like it wasn't acceptable. It nearly looked like he was going to go off on a rant about the new rules, and then he kind of just checked himself and he was like, I'll say nothing, which I kind of laughed at. But yeah, look, I think it's just finding consistency with some of the newer players. That way. I think from a Dublin perspective, the physicality side of things worries me a little bit. How much we were bullied and just, it just felt like Armagh were just like physically a good bit ahead of Dublin, in my opinion. No matter what we tried, they were just quicker, they were sharper. Again, it is an interesting one. Like you're seeing a lot of home teams kind of pulling off these wins, a lot of away teams going around, going to games and kind of struggling. We saw that a little bit with Kerry when they played Mayo. It took them a long time to get going, and nearly obviously pulled some out of it, but Mayo went on to get the victory. So yeah, it's a hard one to kind of know, really. I think it's probably different for Dublin than it is for Armagh. Like Dublin can, look, I know there's been some improvements in Leinster maybe this year, but Dublin should, you would imagine, still have enough to win that, in my opinion. Albeit the gap might be closing. But I think for Dublin, like they, I think Armagh are kind of coming into their groove now where they need to start hitting their peak soon because Ulster isn't so far away. Whereas for Dublin, they don't need to be at their peak in Leinster. Do you know what I mean? They can wait. So it's kind of a hard one to know. Like I thought Dublin just looked miles off at times, but I did think it was largely down to how well Armagh plays.
Yeah, no, definitely in terms of like the picking up your point initially on managing out both seasons, like Armagh's trajectory and where Armagh have to get to at different times is different to what Dublin have to get to, because if you look at the history of, you know, the Ulster Championship, especially after Ulster teams have won the All-Ireland, the rest of them can't wait to get their hands on them. Like they literally are like, you know, it's almost like seeing your rivals do so well drives you on. Whereas in Leinster, you know, what we saw was when Dublin ascended, everybody else, you know, fell off, and Leinster became such a cakewalk for Dublin over the last 10 years. And look, Meath are making great strides and Kildare are making great strides. So hopefully, you know, we can see an end to it. And then Offaly and Louth obviously deserve a massive shout there as well. Like, definitely I would look at it and say Armagh have shown us flashes of what they're capable of. It's just, again, whether or not they can keep that consistency, because they've been very inconsistent throughout this league campaign, leading to me making the point about, you know, how much is McGeeney looking for consistency, or is he just looking to keep the lads sharp and match fit? I think Desi would have been really annoyed because a lot of Dublin fans made the trip. Like, a lot of Dublin fans made a long journey up to Armagh on a Saturday night. That's a long journey home. And especially in the first half, we were really bad. So I think for a lot of Dublin fans, in those moments, it wouldn't have felt worth it to make that journey up. And if the fans are going to make that long trip, you have to give them their money's worth and give them a show. And I think Desi was aware of that. And I think that would have been one of the reasons why he was so frustrated, because he didn't come across that frustrated after the Donegal game. I know that it was a different result. It was a better performance by Dublin. But again, that was a game in a way that also I never thought we were going to win. And I never thought we were going to get anything out of that as the game progressed. So, yeah, all in all, it's a bad day at the office for Dublin. Armagh have shown what they're capable of. I'm definitely going to be interested to see whether they stick with Ethan Rafferty or whether they go back to Blaine Hughes when the championship comes around, because Blaine Hughes was immense last season. And if they go back to Rafferty, it kind of feels a bit harsh, doesn't it? Like, so there's a lot of intrigue around Armagh. Like, Rian O'Neill obviously returning to the panel is a massive boost as well. Like, there were obviously a lot of speculation about would he be coming back. Like, there were a lot of people, like, I remember Colin Parkinson, I think, tweeted something like, you know, that he thought that O'Neill wasn't going to come back, and there was a lot of speculation. So to have him back is really, really important for Armagh. And look, for Dublin the next game, obviously, because it's not next weekend, but the next game for Dublin is really, really important. You need to get your feet back under the table quick, because consistency isn't the be-all and end-all in the league, I would say. We've seen plenty of examples in the past of, you know, Dublin not winning the league but winning the All-Ireland, Limerick in the hurling not winning the league but winning the All-Ireland. And then we've seen the flip side of Derry and Waterford winning the league, everybody, you know, raving about them, and then the championship falls apart. So it's not the be-all and end-all, but you do want to feel like your squad is in a good place going into the All-Ireland Championship and going into the All-Ireland Series. And a result like this will have had a bad impact on, you know, where Dublin are and where they feel like they're at, because it wasn't just a defeat, it was the manner of it. And do you know what? I'm going to give you props, first of all, because I know in my own head from past experience that if you sat me down in a pub in Prague where the beers are cheaper than water and made me watch that first half, I think I'd have about 9 beers down. So fair play to you. I don't know how you're still alive with me.
No, it was like, it was one of them. It's you know, because it's a league game, it doesn't hurt obviously the same way a championship loss would be. But it was just watching the score. I think it was like 1-9 to a point or something. It was just like, yeah, and obviously it was keeping an eye on the score in the second half, and I've seen the highlights back, and you're thinking, oh, maybe all of a sudden should we go back to where we were there and watch the last 10 minutes of the game? But I always felt like Armagh we're going to find the way. Sean says here, Fenton is a huge loss, but an even bigger loss with these new kickouts. He would have cleaned up this year. Unlucky performance. Dublin didn't get a sniff of the ball until 20 minutes. Nearly actually missed the game as the car broke down on an A28 outside Newry and had to hitchhike Wow, that sounds like quite the experience there. Definitely a story to be told. Ciaran Ash here says, what you think of the 20-second kick-out rule? Yeah, like I do as well, to be fair. I think it is one of the better kind of new rules. Alan says you will see a different Dublin v Galway. Dublin can still get to a league final. Absolutely. Look, it is still all to play for. I don't think, defeat was the end of the world. We saw Dublin get a lot of very good results, and obviously for Armagh, huge win for them again. Like at home, it is an absolute fortress. And as I tweeted out, kind of a full time. I think with it's the physical size of them, and it's obviously the technical ability of them as well. But I think they will. They're certainly not going to be going away anywhere this year. That is for sure. We had Mayo, who got a big win versus Kerry, 21 points to 116. Kind of similar in some respects, albeit Kerry dragged the game back a little bit more. Like Mayo were very, very dominant, sort of in the early stages of this game. Kerry obviously dragged themselves back into it, but in the end, Mayo get the result. Ryan O'Donoghue with a couple of absolute scorchers, and massive win for Mayo, it seems like, and certainly from looking at their fans and supporters as well, they definitely did enjoy this one.
Yeah, they certainly did. I mean, the rivalry with Kerry means that every time that they lock horns, whether it's in the league or whether it's in the championship, it's always going to carry that with it. So to get to beat Kerry, in McHale Park is definitely massive. And when you look at the table now, Kerry, I just have it here in front of me, Kerry are on 4 points. Tyrone are on 3. I mean, they're really not far off. And then Mayo are on 5, Armagh are on 5, and then you're up to Dublin 6, and then Donegal and Galway at the top. Derry, I think, are gone. I'd be stunned if Derry survive, especially given that they only have now, 2 games left to save themselves. But for Mayo, this win just kind of allows them to open up the top button a little bit, get some air in. They've won 2 huge games, like the Tyrone game and the Kerry game. If they lost them, they were gone. Simple as that. And getting themselves up to the 5-point mark. The point against Armagh could prove to be crucial, even though there's arguments that they should have won that game, but they got a point out of it. And this game, having seen how Kerry dug the Tyrone game out of the fire the previous week, I was actually expecting Kerry to win this one, because I was really, really impressed with how they just battled and clawed their way to the victory that day in Plunkett Park in Pomeroy, because the wind that day was awful. It was blowing into their face, and Clifford gets his hat-trick and Kerry get out of there, smash and grab with the win. And I really thought Kerry could be safe now after that, because I would have backed them to win this game, but they're right back in the fire again. And one more slip up, if Tyrone take advantage of it, they could be down, which is crazy to think, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, I mean, is it, I know it's been talked about enough, obviously, like with, the influence of David Clifford, but it just feels like it, like they just can't seem, no matter what they try, to find the solution sort of around him. Midfield as well, they've chopped and changed at times, like through the years. They can't seem to find a solid pair in midfield. They've got good, defenders, had a great defensive structure the last couple of years, but I feel like the game becoming a lot more attacking with these new rules. Bizarrely, you would think it would suit Kerry more, but it seems to actually be favouring against them, because they don't seem to have the forwards or the attacking players outside Clifford to really influence games, I think.
Yeah, I think the one thing that does need to be considered in this game is that they were without Shawnee O'Shea. He definitely has a massive influence on the game, because he gives them a completely, new dimension to their attack. But you are right, like Clifford, the reality is it's kind of a bit of a catch-22 with David Clifford, because he's one of the best forwards I've ever seen. Like, he's one of the most talented forwards I've ever seen, especially when he's at his peak. I mean, we've seen very few players who can get to the level that he can. And of course, you're going to give him the ball as much as you can. That's a no-brainer. If you have an awesome inside forward there in Clifford, you're going to try and get the ball into his hands as much as you possibly can, because he's the guy who makes stuff happen. But it's like, when you do that, if that guy isn't firing, all of a sudden you're in trouble. And usually, quite good for Kerry is that usually he does fire. But there is a day coming where it kind of bites them on the ass, because you look at like the All-Ireland final last year with Galway, that like they just repeatedly kept giving it to Shane Walsh, even though Walsh clearly wasn't hitting them over the bar. They were still like, what else do we do? Finity's gone, Comer's not on it today. We're just gonna have to keep going to Walsh and hope that he can, pull something out of the fire. So it definitely is a bit of a catch-22. Around midfield, I think the losses of, first of all, the retirement to David Moran, Mark O'Connor going to Australia, and Jack Barry stepping away from the panel. Like, I think they've been forced to chop and change a lot more than they would have liked to. And while I have been impressed at times with Dermot O'Connor and Joe O'Connor, I don't look at them and fear them in terms of like a midfield pairing. I would definitely look at like midfield pairings like Con Kilpatrick, Brian Kennedy, like, Conor Glass, Brendan Rodgers / Anton Tohill. And I'd look at them and think they're stronger pairings. And I think, with the new rules, it's interesting because obviously there is a lot more emphasis on the long kickouts. And you look at how Donegal can now kick it to someone like Michael Murphy. Derry can kick it to someone like Glass. Dublin can kick it to someone like Brian Howard. It's who's Kerry's pit bull there to catch everything for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, that's the thing. They just don't seem to have that threat from midfield or that dominance in midfield that you'd so often associate with Kerry. And as
David
you said,
Moran,
David Moran was I always remember him in the 2019 final, the drawn game. Like, he was an absolute beast in that game, across both games, really.
Yeah.
And like not having him, like, I think is a huge loss for Kerry. In fairness, Gaelic Eye says, I'm a bit worried for Kerry. I still think Tyrone can survive too. Sean says, anytime Kerry have a good prospect to join Clifford, they end up in the AFL. Killian Burke is a massive loss. It is true. It is true, yeah. Gaelic Eye says, I could see Kerry losing to Armagh, so I'd expect them to go down, which is mental. And Ciaran Nash says, Derry and Kerry to go down, possibly. It is looking tough for
When is
the
last time? I want to look that up actually right now. When is the last time Kerry got relegated?
I think it was the 90s, something like that, I think. Because I know a Kerry fan once told me before that it's been a good 20 plus years, I think, since they went down. Potentially since they've changed the format of the league. Potentially there's never been relegated.
It doesn't even say.
Yeah, perhaps they've never been relegated.
It doesn't even say. The first thing that comes up is when they won the Division 2 hurling title. Like, it's crazy. It's breaking the system if Kerry get relegated. So, and do you think then that would mean, surely that would mean win or bust in the All-Ireland for Jack O'Connor then?
I think so, absolutely, yeah. And it would make sense, I think, especially for a team like Kerry, with the history of Kerry when they won the All-Ireland in 22, was it? Like, we all felt like they were gonna kick on. And look, winning back-to-back All-Irelands is a very difficult thing. They haven't been far off. They got to the final in 23. They lost to the All-Ireland champions in 24. I don't think they're a million miles away.
Last year they felt like they'd taken a step back, though. They
just seem to be kind of gradually. They seem to be gradually regressing, and they don't seem to be getting better, which I think you would have thought they would have been getting better by now. That way.
I know it. Yeah, I know it's not the full measuring stick, but I always go back to that point that, like, Dublin's dominance and the crop that they had, I was like, they got that off one All-Ireland minor title. Like, one All-Ireland minor title. I know that we had success at under 21 and everything like that, and you obviously have to take that into account as well, but one minor All-Ireland title, and I was like, Kerry won 5 in a row. And I was like, Jesus Christ, there must be some ballers coming here. And we weren't wrong. 2019, their best players that day in the drawn final were David Clifford and Shawnee O'Shea, as well as David Moran, obviously. And you were thinking, like, God, these guys are going to be unstoppable. Like, once they get that first one, they're going to be like, it's going to be like a shark when it gets a scent of blood. Like, they're going to want more and more and more success. And that was a great point that Sean Sugu made there about, like, Killian Burke looked a serious player and he's just gone to Australia. And like Mark O'Connor, another one who looked like almost an heir to David Moran, and again whipped off to Australia. And like, that's a huge blow to Kerry, and it's really, really hard because Killian Burke, again, big, strong lad who does like a lot of donkey work around the middle. And I would compare him to someone like probably like a Donegal Walsh type, that like someone who's big, strong, will run until his legs are stumps and will be kind of an unsung hero, but will be very effective. That was kind of the way I looked at him. To lose a player of his quality is a big blow to Kerry, no doubt about it. And all of a sudden, Mayo, who, 2 rounds in, you were looking at Mayo thinking, the knives are out for McStay. And it's, again, crazy how quick the narrative changes. Now Mayo sit on 5 points. I would say they're probably safe, especially seeing who Kerry have yet to play. As in making that point, Armagh and Galway, like if they lose both of them and Tyrone get 1 win,
they're
done, which is absolutely bonkers. So I think Mayo probably are safe. I think it's going to be one of Tyrone or Kerry that goes down. But maybe Mayo would want to pick up 1 more win just to fully push it away from them.
Yeah, Mikey says here, I fancy Tyrone to beat the Dubs at home on the final day, but I'll still need at least a draw versus Donegal to go above Kerry. There we go.
Imagine, man. This is going to be like, when Arsenal needed Spurs to beat Man City.
Yeah.
Going into the final, and now all the Spurs fans were screaming at the team to throw the game and not let Arsenal win. It's like, if Dublin know that if they win this, Kerry will be.
But then we could, if we lose as well, then we could be in trouble potentially.
But
so
you know what? It happened in 2013. Do you remember Kerry were? This is very niche, but do you remember Kerry were going to get relegated in 2013, and Paul Mannion scored a point in our last league game of the season to draw? I can't remember exactly who it was against, but we drew that last league game of the season, and that meant that Donegal went down instead of Kerry.
Yeah.
But if Mannion didn't score that point, Kerry would have gone down. They were that close. And I remember seeing a headline where it was like Fitzmaurice saying that he feels like he owes Paul Mannion a pint. But so they've flirted with it before, but they've never got caught. And it's kind of like a Monaghan style situation where you're not really able to believe that they will get caught. But having looked at those 2 fixtures there, neither of them are going to be easy win games. I think the Armagh one, with respect, is probably the one that I would fancy them to win more, just because of how inconsistent Armagh have been. But they are absolutely playing with fire. There's no question about it.
100%. And yeah, look, fair play to Mayo as well. You do have to give them massive credit, obviously, for digging out the victory, even when Kerry had turned it around. And yeah, I think Mayo have silenced some of the critics and everything else that have gone with it there. You do have Donegal, who beat Derry 122 to 119. Massive result there for Donegal, and for Derry again. I mean, I feel like it's been the same old story every week with Derry. Like, they've become so close to getting wins. Their performances haven't been bad. They've been in front in matches, and then they've sort of capitulated a little bit towards the end. And yeah, as you said, it's 5 games without a win, 2 games to go. Like, they're gone probably, and it probably is Donegal and possibly now in the league final, you'd imagine.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that Derry are gone. They're where I predicted them to be at this stage. I did predict them to be last. When me and Matthew did the full in-depth league prediction video, I think maybe in my quick picks I put them 7th. But I think I'd look at this and be like, the difference is they're where I thought they would be, but I thought that they would be kind of similar to what Donegal were a couple of years ago when they were under Paddy Carr, and then Paddy Carr left, and it was just all over the place, because I watched Derry just clearly for months have no idea who they wanted to manage them. They were literally just like, where's everybody gone? And I think that they did have their target, but obviously they couldn't go that way. And then they were left, in my opinion, with hiring someone that wasn't their first choice in Paddy Tally, even though he is an exceptional coach. I think initially they wanted Rory Gallagher, and they weren't really able to go down that route, obviously with the controversy. And then they went with Tally eventually. And I was looking at this thinking, if they get a couple of really bad results at the start of the league, and especially when they lost to Tyrone the way they did in round 1, I was like, this could go south really quick. And just, I would point to, even though they lost to Kerry, they really, really showed grit and heart in that one. And then when they got the draw, was against Galway, the draw. They showed me enough in that one to be like, okay, no, they're still fighting for the team. They're still playing for the cause, and they're going down, yes, but they're going down swinging, and that means that they're still capable of winning an All-Ireland and still capable of, competing at the top level. A lot of people will think, what are you on about saying that Derry can win an All-Ireland when they're getting relegated? If you look over the last few years, being in Division 2 or getting relegated from Division 1 doesn't really mean anything for your All-Ireland credentials. Like the last 4 All-Ireland finals, we've had a team that played in Division 2 in those All-Ireland finals every single time. Galway in 22, Dublin in 23, Armagh in 24, and then Mayo in 21. Like it's been constant. And Mayo got to the final in 2020 after getting relegated from the league that season as well. So Derry have shown in all their games an ability to compete, and especially in this game, even though they lost to Donegal, they were right in it to the bitter end. And like Donegal just had that momentum towards the end. Like you can tell, like some big scores from the likes of Oisin Gallen and from Kieran Thompson and everything like that going down the home stretch. And it just felt like they had a wave of momentum behind them, and that kind of blew them over the finish line. And Derry were kind of overwhelmed a little bit by it. I think some big moments went against Derry. Look, they lost, but they're certainly at their level. And I thought that maybe we'd see more of a dramatic fall off.
Yeah, Mikey says here, Derry losing from that position was the biggest choke I've ever seen since last week. And Sam says Derry leaking a lot of goals, possibly the worst record goals against. Yeah, that does seem to be a significant problem.
The score difference.
Yeah, like that's the issue. And as you said, they haven't been a million miles off teams. I know they got beat quite comfortably by the Dubs. Last week.
Without that
one. Aside from that one, like you're always going to get one or two of them in a season. Do you know what I mean? Even the league winners can get them. The All-Ireland winners can get them. Yeah, like that can happen to any team. But yeah, it is tough for Derry. What did you make of Jim McGuinness full time saying that we don't really want to win the league and everything else? It's a bit mad, isn't it? Like you've got the league, that no one wants to win. You've got provincial championships that half the provinces don't care about. It's you've brought in all these new rules and they're just making everyone more angry. It just it's hard to know what we need to do right, isn't it?
Well, this is a classic case of like you'll never make everybody happy. I think this is more of a calendar issue. Is that I think Jim will be fully aware that like they were last season where Derry are now. Not where Derry are now in terms of like their form. Obviously, Donegal were in better form. They were winning Division 2, but Derry were where Donegal were last year. Is a better way to put it. As in, everyone was talking about Derry this time last year and talking about how they'd gone away to Kerry and beaten them, how they'd beaten Dublin on penalties in one of the best league finals we'd ever seen, and how that they were going to, win Ulster and they were going to go for the All-Ireland. And Donegal were just waiting in the long grass for them. And I think McGuinness was just studying Mickey Hart, every single what he had for breakfast, lunch and dinner. And he knew that Donegal were going to catch Derry in that Ulster Championship game. And not only did they catch them, like they knocked them out. Like it felt like an earth-shattering defeat for Derry, and the mystique was broken that day. And now Donegal are in the exact position Derry were last season. Everybody's talking about them. Everyone's saying, it's Jim's second season. We all know what he did in the second season last year. He got them and he won the All-Ireland with them. And there's a lot of expectation that he's going to do it again. And Derry are going to be completely underestimated in that Ulster Championship clash. And the one thing that this game showed is Donegal and Derry is a competitive match. And if Donegal aren't at 100%, Derry will beat them. So I can't wait for that one. I cannot wait for that one. And for Jim to come out and say that they're not really trying to win the league, don't buy it. I don't buy it, to be honest. Like, I mean, the rumor came out as well that Michael Murphy was going to play in goal. Yeah. Okay. Whoever believed that one have a word with yourself.
Yeah.
When
That was
Donegal have
annoying.
one of the best keepers in the country there, and Sean Patton. Yeah, that was an interesting one. But I fully believe that if Jim has an opportunity to put more silverware into the Donegal kitty, I don't see why he wouldn't. Why he wouldn't want to give it everything that they've got. I see a Galway Donegal League final happening. Probably see Galway shading it, to be honest. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, no, 100%. And even looking at it, like they've only won the National Football League once in their history, and that was 2007. So look, it would be a great achievement for Donegal to have. But as you said, it's just that close sort of proximity of, playing in a league final and then obviously being out a week later. I mean, they did do it last year, like they were in the Division 2 final, and then I think it was I don't know if it was the following week. Maybe there was a 2-week gap there between when they played Derry. I actually think there might have been a week gap there, but obviously it's different, playing at a higher level. Do you know what I mean? Higher, a higher division. But there we are. Galway drew with Tyrone 118-118. Bit of a madness towards the end of this game, with the late 2-pointer by Shane Walsh. The hooter not working or whatever it was. The clock stopwatch stopped working. Certain managers not hearing the hooter, like just absolute chaos. And you do have to feel a little bit sorry for Tyrone, to be fair, towards the end there, because I do feel like they got royally done a little bit. And given they had this game, look, in some ways they only have themselves to blame for leaving themselves into that situation, but you feel like this was a huge opportunity for Tyrone to get the win, to hang on, to put to bed any relegation worries. But now, as you said, they're still firmly in it.
Yeah, and on top of that, they've now got 3 games: the Mayo game, the Kerry game, and now the Galway game. That, like, if they go down, they're going to look at those 3 and be like, oh my God, how did we get out of those 3 games with nothing? Like, how did we get out of those 3 games with 0 points? So it's been in their hands. And yeah, it's unfortunate the way that it's played out. It was bizarre. Like, I was keeping up with this game on Scorpio. I wasn't watching it live, but I remember seeing it come through when it was saying like 74 minutes, Maddie Donnelly, 78 minutes, Shane Walsh. So I was like, what the, like, what's going on? Like, it's just nuts. And like, I think one thing that you have noticed is we haven't seen any complaints about time, like additional time, or the ref didn't blow up at the correct time, etc., etc. We haven't seen that yet, and that's something that I've been screaming on my podcast for years, is that we needed to adopt the LGFA clock with the twist on it, which I'll come to when we talk about Meath and Westmeath and the controversial buzzer beater. But yeah, this really was an unprecedented situation.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was bizarre, really, in many ways. And I have noticed that a few times when I've watched the games where it's like, and I always thought it was more maybe an issue with RTE, maybe potentially, like not having the right kind of clock. And I don't know if it was the same within the ground, but it felt like in certain moments it wasn't stopping, then it was, and it didn't seem to be kind of in line. Like even in other games, I was kind of noticing that a little bit, but I was thinking, maybe it was just me kind of watching it. So it was interesting to see something like that actually happen within a game. But yeah, as you said, like for Galway, I mean, it's, especially them with these 2 pointers, Shane Walsh as well, again, unstoppable. And, you'd imagine they'll be hoping to keep these rules around anyway.
Yeah, no, he's unbelievable, man. And me and Matthew were having that debate yesterday. I just put out the clip actually just before this pod of me and Matthew debating, like, if you had 1 2-point kick to save your life, who would you pick to kick it? And both of us agreed Shane Walsh. And I don't know, would you have any disagreements with that, or would you pick Walsh as well?
Probably would, yeah. I'd also look at Rian O'Neill as well. I feel like he'd Bailey out in a big scenario. He's a big game player.
Yeah, he's pretty clutch as well, to be
I know
fair.
Conor McManus is retired now, but you would have obviously looked towards him as well. But yeah, you would look towards maybe even Samuel Roy, to be fair.
Samuel Roy would be a good one. Maddie Ford would be one of my favourites. I love Maddie Ford. That fella. I remember because growing up, me and my family had a holiday home in Wexford, and so I was growing up watching Wexford kind of around the late 2000s, early 2010s. And I remember Maddie Ford was the guy. I remember like he scored a winner against Meath in the 2008 Leinster Championship when Wexford had been something like 11 points behind at halftime. and Matty Ford kicked the winner from what definitely would have been outside the 2 meter arc now. So yeah, he would have been a good one to put money on. But anyway, we'll get back to this game. Yeah, like personally, I just think when it comes to the clock and things like that, what I'm gonna say basically what I'm gonna say again later on is there needs to be one more tweak made to the time, in my opinion, for it to be, solid. And that is that the clock stops every time that somebody's messing with the play. Yeah, I agree with that. That, the clock stops whenever there's a sub being made or whenever there's a long wait for a free kick, etc., etc. But once the hooter goes, in my opinion, there should be one more play. Because I'll give you a perfect example. In the All-Ireland Intermediate LGFA final, this was 2 years ago between Kildare and Clare. And Kildare were a couple of points ahead, like 2 points ahead in the last play. Clare dropped the ball in around the house. A Clare forward got her hands on it and shot towards the goal just as the hooter went. Like, I literally mean it's completely up to your discretion, the referee's discretion, whether or not he thinks that she kicked it before the hooter or only had it in her hands as the hooter went. But anyway, when she kicked it, the hooter went and a Kildare defender blocked it. And then, they were like, okay, game's over. But I swear to God, if that ball had flown into the back of the net, then it just would have been completely up to the referee to decide who wins. And we can't leave it in that situation. It's pretty much happened in the Meath against Westmeath game. And Westmeath, are needing those points to stay up. Meath are needing those points to get promoted. And the referee basically has just had to be like, go. Just no idea. And you have to make your judgment in that moment. Whereas I think that if there was one more play after the hooter, I think that would take care of it. We see it a lot in rugby that, like, when the hooter goes, they have to put the ball into touch for the game to be over. And that leads to its own drama.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be against that either. I know some people would say, oh, it's very kind of copying the rugby elements to it.
Our game has become basketball.
yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, like you're copying other sports already. So, like, why not take that? I would agree. Like, I think it would be, and I feel like that's why the hooter didn't go when Walsh was taking the free, because you could hardly just sound it off as he's taking it. Do you know what I mean? Before he takes the free, like, it just wouldn't really.
Let me put this thought in your head. Let me just close your eyes and imagine it's the All-Ireland final. Dublin against Kerry. The teams are level. The hooter goes and Dublin have the ball and they've won and they have the ball. The hooter goes and everyone in the stadium knows if this ball goes dead, the game's over. So who like the next shot
wins it, basically.
Golden goal, basically. That would be carnage, and it would be some of the most iconic winners of all time. Plus, it also takes care of your other problem. You're making the game more exciting, more dramatic, and you're also taking care of any future problems that will happen. Mark my words, will happen when if you leave it open to interpretation, with the referee having to make those really decisive calls as to who wins.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, like, absolutely. I think that would be a great addition to it. But do let us know in the comments, like, what kind of changes maybe you guys would make to it and everything else. Just going through some comments here. Kieran says Derry are still a dangerous side. Just been unlucky closing out some games. They'll take some positives from the match against Donegal going into the prelims of the Ulster Championship. Yeah, absolutely. I think they will. Nerb says here Derry are the next Arsenal. I actually thought they had it with 10 minutes to go. Yeah, a few Arsenal references. Someone else commented the Arsenal score of a match there as well. It's just a bit random, but thanks for letting us know anyway. Sam also says, seriously, you'd be very naive to rule out any of the Division 1 teams for the All-Ireland success at this stage with the new rules and the pathology of teams in the league. Absolutely. I don't think it's like previous years where Monaghan have maybe gone down. You thought there's no way they can come back from this, or other teams in the past. I do agree. I think Derry have shown a lot of positives, and I think they've weirdly probably looked better maybe than people expected yeah, here they are sitting bottom of the league, and that that is the nature of how we all expected there to be very little between a lot of these teams. We all said this is the best 8. There's no kind of easy team you look at and think they're going to go down. But yeah,
that's the great thing as well is Tyrone have had a good league. I know that they've lost games, but in terms of their performances, they've been really, really good.
They have been. Like, and even as you'll see it there, like even with 3 points on the board, Derry with 1 point on the board. Throw this banner off the screen there, but you see, like, there's very little between a lot of them there, and like, fair play to at GEA league tables. Obviously, always like to give them their props, doing great work, and they've even put the remaining 2 fixtures on the board there as well for each county, so you can see them there. So like, it is still all to play for, and like looking at Derry, Mayo at home, Armagh a week before the Ulster Championship. Like, they're probably like they could win both of those 2 games, but they probably are asking a bit too much still to get over.
Yeah, I do think, like, look, Tyrone, in my opinion, probably have lost the key games. Like, they've lost to Mayo, they've lost to Kerry, and then obviously they lost this game to Galway. They didn't win this game against Galway. Like, looking at it there, I think Kerry will probably, this is what I'd lean to. I think Kerry might beat Armagh in that game, having home advantage. I think Armagh, a long journey down to Kerry. I think Kerry might go guns blazing for that game and pull out a win and save themselves. Tyrone, like, 2 extremely difficult games. Donegal away, Dublin at home. Like, you're going to need a miracle for Tyrone to stay up, unfortunately, because I really like Tyrone and I like their team. I like the Canavan brothers, Owen McElhone, Darren McCurry, Maddie Donnelly. Like, they've an incredible group of players there. But you never know. A year in Division 2 might do them the world of good because they can, build that team. And one thing that I've always thought is Tyrone have almost the opposite problem in terms of, like, not having enough players. They've almost too many players that are quite similar in how they play. Like, you think a left-footed, speedster with a lot of skill, like Darren McCurry, Mark Bradley, Lee Brennan, they've got plenty of options of players that can do those roles. And definitely, I think a year at Division 2 could be a blessing in disguise for Malachy O'Rourke next season, because it could do what Armagh got to do, what Donegal got to do, what Dublin and Derry got to do, which is, build your team for the future without that ruthless cutthroat competition that you get in Division 1.
Yeah. Tom says here, did you see the Meath manager interview? Said it's not GA anymore. Sarah Nash says GA.
It's entertaining.
His interview was entertaining, to be fair. Says GA Social did a podcast on the rules, saying as well how the time on the clock isn't in sync. So there you go. Look, we'll transition and go straight into the Meath game. Look, they did beat Westmeath 3-14 to 117. Like a lot of Westmeath's games, they haven't been a million miles off. And fair play to me, they dug deep in this game. They showed a different type to themselves that they probably, in the other games, they've obviously been brilliant. But sometimes you need these type of wins where you can dig it out, even in games where you're maybe not playing your absolute best, or and everything. And obviously, I didn't see any of this game. Now I'm just going off what other people said, but big win for Meath. But as you said, both Dermot McCabe and Robbie Brennan at full time. Not happy at all with some of the rules. Robbie Brennan comparing it, saying there's a bit of basketball. It's like basketball with a bit of rugby thrown in there. Basically saying that it's not like GAA at all, is paraphrasing.
Yeah, I mean, the point that I said to you earlier was, I said, oh, why is it not like Gaelic football? Because it's entertaining now. Like, it's like, yeah. I said it on my podcast with Matthew Day yesterday. I was like, when managers talk about, we're complaining about scoring too much, I'm like, do you know what fans want to see? Like,
yeah,
I couldn't give a shit about defensive systems or, like, do you know how boring it was to watch lads hand passing the ball around the back? Like, literally just, keep ball. Or the hand goes up. You're like, here we go. 40 seconds of hanging on to the ball here. And I'm so glad to see more attacking. That's what everybody wanted to see. Look at this scoreline. 117 to 314. And that's become a fairly normal scoreline now. Like the new rules, yes, they're in their rocky stage, they're in their infancy stage where everybody's still getting to grips with it. But look at the score lines. Like teams that were not even barely passing 15 points a game are now all of a sudden racking up like 317, 318 per game. The games are far more entertaining, and a big lead can slip quite quickly as well. We've seen that because like last season, if Kerry played Dublin last season, and if Dublin were behind, what was it, by 12 points or something they were behind at halftime, like something crazy, the game would have been done. Because anytime the Dublin got a score, Kerry just would have hung on to the ball, killed the momentum, and rightfully so. But now, when Dublin kick, a few 2-pointers in a row, all of a sudden the gap is sliced in half. And that leads to the game being more enjoyable. And I get Robbie Brennan's point that, like, if you have a slow start, you can end up miles behind really, really quick, and it's kind of hard to stay in the game. But I would love to actually see a poll done for GAA fans, like by an official GAA account or something like that. I'd love to see, do you find the games now more entertaining? Like, I would 100% agree that the games are more entertaining now. What would you think?
I think so, yeah. They definitely are far more entertaining. I do get it from Robbie Brennan's point of view at times. There is so much going on. There's so much that they're missing. Look, there was always going to be stumbling blocks with it, especially with bringing these new rules in. I don't think it's as big of a deal. Some of the mistakes and everything that's happening, all these mistakes were always going to be there. I think it's probably
Parkinson made a great point though. He said it's like some of the managers are looking for ways to stink the place out.
Yeah. But I think it's probably, but I think from a coaching point of view, it's probably harder now because like every team is kind of nearly playing the same way. Every team is almost being forced to play the same way in some ways, and for coaches, they're trying to learn sort of as you go along. You're trying to innovate. You're trying to find. You're trying to get better. Like it was kind of bizarre with Robbie Brennan. Like considering how well Meath have done, you would think he would be one of the more happier coaches. Like I had to almost look at this score a couple of times, be like, Meath actually won this game, 8 points on the board. We'll look at the league table. Like they're in a fantastic position to get promoted, which would be incredible for Meath. I think I think for coaches, they might be getting a little bit frustrated with it because it is, probably takes more out of the players as well, which means you have to, use more of your squad. You don't have that control in matches as well. Like I think with the kickouts, like especially and that's why we're seeing games flip flop so much because like once you get a score, it's so easy to win your kick out back. And I think Kieran Whelan alluded to this in the Sunday game and he made a great point. It's so easy now to win opposition kickouts and you can you can dominate games and you can hit 5, 6, 7 on the bounce quite easily. And I think that's probably frustrating coaches, I'd imagine.
Well, it definitely is frustrating coaches. But the point is that while last season we had some crackers and had some brilliant, brilliant games, like Dublin Derry in the league final was an awesome game. Mayo Dublin, even in the championship in the group stages, was really, really good. We had a lot of very, very good games, but most of the games were pretty boring, to be honest. And the game had kind of slipped into this routine where players would just hand pass more than they would kick, and it just wasn't that entertaining anymore. And you'd be in the stadium and you'd see people like going on their phone in the middle of the game, tuning out, and then only putting their head up when somebody else makes a noise that there's an attack going on. And like we were there for Dublin Roscommon in the group stage of the All-Ireland, like that just wasn't a good game of Gaelic football was. And I think it had got to a stage where they needed to make the changes. And the one thing is that when time moves on and we have problems with the current new rules, I think a lot of people are very quick to forget why we have made these changes. And like, seriously, go back and watch a game like the Mayo County final, which both teams only scored 1 point from play in the entire game. And then you will understand why there was a need to move it towards something more like this. There are still some tweaks that they need to make. And obviously the big tweak is with the clock. That's the big one that they need to make, in my opinion, because this situation with Westmeath and Meath, where Meath get that late goal from Conor Duke and win the game, it's a real warning to the GAA that, look, I think they need to tweak the clock one more time. I really do. I think that they need to take a page out of the rugby book and go, okay, once the hooter goes, everybody in the stadium knows there's one more play and you have to put the ball dead before the game is over. Because that example that I gave you of the All-Ireland Intermediate LGFA final, Kildare player kicks it in. Clare player kicks it in. Kildare are leading by 2 points. Clare forward catches it, shoots for goal. The Kildare defenders block it. But it was impossible to tell if the hooter had gone when she had the ball in her hands or if the hooter had gone when she had kicked the ball. And if that ball had flown into the back of the net, it would have been completely up to the referee to decide who won the All-Ireland Intermediate title, basically. So there's a real warning for the GAA here that if the hooter goes mid-kick for someone, there could be carnage in a really, really big game. So I would think have the countdown clock just the way that we have it. But once the hooter goes, one more play. And when that ball goes dead, then the referee gives a big final whistle. And we all know that the game is done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even Terry makes a good point here. He says it's so much better now, lads, with me living in the States. I couldn't imagine bringing people home to watch the all games for the first time. Now I can show them what our game's about. And yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point as well. And it's good to expand the game to get more people interested in the game. That's obviously what you want to see as well. And Mikey says here, Meath with last minute controversial goal, shaking hands. Yeah, absolutely. Obviously with Conor Dukes, like all. Yeah, but look, they dug deep in the end. Owen Frayne with 4 points, Jordan Morris with 1 free as well. Jack Flynn with 3 points. So yeah, massive result there for Meath. In fairness, big scoreline this: Cork 13, Roscommon 221. Very dominant victory for the Rossies. Didn't expect them to win as comfortably as they did here. I thought Cork would give this a much better battle, but look, fair play to Roscommon. Gerben Murtha with 7, Conor Hand with 6, Ben O'Carroll back starting with 1-3. Big result for the Rossies, and has them in a good position to get promoted.
Certainly, and then on top of that, Conor Hand with 6 and the Smith with the other goal. Like, Roscommon just were really, really, really impressive in this one. I was the same. I thought Cork would give it a little bit more of a go, especially looking at where they are now off the back of this. They're on 4 points. They are not safe by any means. They need another big result, I think, because Down are going to be desperate to get a win, and Down still have to play Westmeath, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, really, really, really good performance by Roscommon. But for Cork, it was definitely a very disappointing result. And you could tell with Matthew that, he was disappointed by the result. And the fact is they were never in the game. Like, the game was over before it began type. And it's a big, big statement by Roscommon.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's worrying signs maybe for Cork having started so well and looking more so towards promotion. All of a sudden, relegation is lurking over their corner. And that's the thing with Cork. There never seems to be an in-between with them. They're either up there, things are going well, or all of a sudden they're in a relegation battle. I think last year was nearly the reversal, where they started off really poorly, ended quite well. But there we are. Mikey says a good chunk of Cork fans left after the hurling game. They didn't miss much, to be fair. Yeah, good exodus from the Cork supporters. Big win for Cavan, 120-118. I mean, Down have been a big disappointment here. I know there was a controversial point at the end from Pat Haverin, I think it was, that wasn't given the 2-pointer. But like for Down, you'd have to say it's been disappointing. I expected a lot better from them in Division 2.
Yeah, I thought that they'd finish mid-table, but the way things are going now, they're looking like they could go down, ironically. But like they had a lot of hype around them, for sure. I would personally say that, the momentum that they were carrying in, obviously off the back of winning the Division 3 title, winning the Tailteann Cup. Yeah, it's definitely disappointing to see that the momentum has kind of got a bit stuck in the mud here.
Yeah, you have to credit the Cavan though as well. I mean, 3 wins on the bounce. So fair play to Cavan.
And from a difficult position as well, without Paddy Lynch, with a bad out start in the league. Like, they got a heavy beating off Monaghan the first day out. They lost to Meath then in the next game, which a lot of people would have looked at as, at the time, a lot of people would have looked at Meath as being a team that would have been around the level with Cavan in terms of like mid-table potential relegation. And when Meath won that, a lot of people were getting worried about Cavan, and they've definitely arrested that tide, and 3 wins on the bounce. You know, you have to give massive credit to Eamon Galligan for that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd Louth 121, Monaghan 127. Sam Roy, who finished with 112 for Louth. So incredible performance from him. But for Monaghan, they march on very, very strongly. Conor McCarthy there with 1-4 on the board there, one of their standout performers. But yeah, massive win for the Farney men. And as I said, it sets it up. Like we'll throw the table on the L screen there. We'll throw it up actually just in a moment because I need to load it in here first. But overall, 3 teams on 8 points. Like it's looking good.
Yeah, and
it's looking interesting going into the final couple of games.
Yeah, Division 2 has been brilliant this season, and I mean, Meath still have to play against Monaghan, which like that's the big one, isn't it? I mean, that's the one that decides it. And like I would look at it and say, like you look there. Monaghan, Meath and Down, Roscommon against Cavan and Westmeath, you'd back Roscommon to win both of those games. So I think Roscommon are going to go up, and it's whoever wins that game between Meath and Monaghan, in my opinion, that will go up. I think for Louth, it's been a shame to see the dream die in terms of like potential promotion and making history to get up to Division 1. I really thought that they were on a track to being able to do that, but it just hasn't been.
Yeah, no, it just hasn't quite happened for Louth. At the same time, I do think they'll be all right, though. I think they'll still do enough to stay up, in my opinion. But yeah, probably a little bit of a setback in some ways.
Can you show them up? Actually, can I see one more time who Cork are playing versus who Down are playing? So I'd back Down to beat Westmeath, but then lose to Monaghan. And I think I would back Cork to be able to win one of either the Louth or Cavan games. So I think Cork will save themselves. And I think Down will be relegated with Westmeath.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's an interesting one because if Monaghan win this weekend versus Meath, then that's them promoted pretty much because of the head-to-head rule. So they could rest players potentially for that game versus Down, and then Down could maybe snoop in and take the 2 points. As we've seen, Monaghan have been often the team at the other end who's often kind of benefited from that. So yeah, it's interesting. Then at the same time, you could look at it the reverse way. You know, if Meath beat Monaghan, then that's them promoted. That could then favour Louth on the final game. You know, with Meath maybe resting players, albeit I'm sure they'd love to. I'm sure they'd love to see Louth, you know, to send Louth down, but. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Mikey says he was the head-to-head between Cork and Down. I think is that Down who won that game. Yeah. So it's hard.
Yeah,
Cork could still be in trouble.
The point about Monaghan is a great one. Like if Monaghan beat Meath, yeah, it's a great point by Mikey, but it won't be. I tell you now, like they've had their games picked out from months ago. Unfortunately,
100%. Yeah. No, like that is the problem. But yeah, look, Division 2 is very just on Meath, Monaghan, and Roscommon. Who do you think goes up between the two, or who wins between that Meath Monaghan game?
Where is it being played?
I think it's Meath that's at home. Yeah, it's Meath at home. Yeah.
I think Meath will go.
Yeah, I think they'll do it as well. To be honest, which is
crazy, isn't it? I predicted them to get relegated, so I have to go into hiding.
Yeah, I knew it was a dodgy prediction, but you were looking at it and thinking, who else is going to go down there?
Yeah.
But there we are. That's Division 2 in the books. We'll have a look at Division 3. Clare 2-12, Kildare 16. Like a bit like Clare, very good side. Bit of a surprise result, just given how good Kildare were marching along. And it does mean that maybe, although I still think Kildare will get promoted, they're not necessarily going to run away with it. But yeah, huge win for Clare. Massively puts them in the promotion race, and yeah, big win for them.
Yeah, like it's an incredible win for Clare, and I picked them to go up this season. I picked them to go up in second place. I thought that the return of some of their big players, like you look at their team here, like they have through the team, Killian Brennan there back at full back, and they have Brian McNamara and Ike Maguire in midfield. And then returning to the forward line, they have Owen Cleary and Keelan Sexton. Like, they are hugely experienced players, and I thought that there'd be enough in there, especially when you combine it with like the talent of people like Emmett McMahon, Aaron Griffin. That, like, I thought Clare will have enough kind of know-how and cuteness, if you like, to get up out of Division 3, because they were a team that were actually pushing for promotion out of Division 2 not that long ago. So I thought they could use their know-how and get out of Division 3 back up, and a win like this over Kildare makes me very, very confident that they're going to be able to do that. And, you know, what's crazy as well is we don't have, you know, too much of a dissimilar situation now, fastly developing in Division 3. Like, we got Kildare and Offaly joined top on 8 points. Laois, Clare, both joined third, if you like, on 6 points. So it's rapidly developing there in front of our eyes. And Laois have been completely ignored, if you like, in terms of, you know, potential promotion candidates. But the other thing as well is Clare still have to play against Sligo. They have a game in hand. And seeing the form of both counties right now, I'd lean towards Clare to win that one, which would put them in a 3 with Kildare and Offaly all on 8 points, which would be nice and not confusing at all.
Yeah, no, it's great, to be fair. A lot of the divisions are wide open. Like, there doesn't seem to be one sort of team who's completely running away with it, as we've often seen in other divisions. We'd Fermanagh 19 points, Sligo 19 points. Big draw in the end for Sligo, albeit it was actually Fermanagh who kicked the final 3 points of this game to get the point. But yeah, finishes as a draw there. And Laois got a big win versus Antrim as well, 22 points to 117. Your thoughts on both of them results?
Yeah, definitely the first one on the Sligo Fermanagh game. It's big for Sligo to just get something, to get a draw, and in a very, very difficult place to go. Fermanagh would look at this as, you know, a big opportunity missed in terms of getting a win and getting 2 points on the board. I think Fermanagh definitely have missed the boat now for promotion. I still don't think Sligo can do it. I think Sligo might have left themselves too much to do. They're on 1 point with 3 points, with 3 games left to go. Sorry, they still have to play Clare. Still have to play. Who else do they still have to play? They still have to play Leitrim, which I think they'll beat Leitrim, but they've got some big games ahead of them, and I think they've got an almighty task. Have Sligo played Antrim yet? Is there a way you can pull that up?
Yeah, we'll throw it up here. We do have it here. So Sligo have not played Antrim. They play them next week.
That's the game. That's the game.
Yeah. And they play Leitrim as well. So you like, I know I don't want to take anything away from Leitrim. We might as well mention their score as well. And to be fair, Leitrim did give this game a much better account than they did some of the other games. It was Leitrim 1-9, Offaly 1-13 in that fixture, and Leitrim were actually leading, I think, maybe a half time or early on. So they definitely kind of had a better match this time around. So maybe that will give them a bit of hope. But even at that, I think they actually might be gone because they lost Antrim already, didn't they? So
yeah. They're gone. And look, even like if they won both the last games, they'd be on 4 points. And if Antrim pick up anything from their 2 games, then they are gone. Like, they need Sligo and Antrim. Somehow they need both of them to lose.
Yeah.
Something mad like that. So I think they need Sligo to beat Antrim, and then Sligo to lose to then they need to beat. I think for Leitrim to stay up, they need to beat. They need to beat Fermanagh and beat Sligo, and they need to hope that Sligo lose to Clare, then beat Antrim, and then lose to them. And then they need Antrim to lose to Sligo and lose to Kildare. So they need a lot to happen. And given their form, I think Leicester winning the league's tight territory.
Yeah, no, 100%. Keane did have a comment here who said, such a way better performance by Leitrim. We were narrowly beaten by an in-form Offaly side by 4 points. There were plenty of fight on show by a young Leitrim team, which augurs well for the future.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe if there was a misspelling. I was thinking that as well. I was like, have I missed something there? Mikey says all down to the Antrim Sligo game for who joins Leitrim and Kildare and Clare to go up. Mikey did have a question here as well. Here's a question, lads. Would any team in Division 3 have stayed up if they're in Division 2 this year? I'd say Kildare would stay up, to be fair. I think Kildare have gotten their act together a little bit more. Even Clare, to be fair, would don't know if they would stay up, but they would give it a good go anyway.
You can make a case for Offaly as well, I'd say. But I think Offaly, it's good that Offaly are in Division 3 this year because it's the first year with Mickey Hart working with Declan Kelly, and it means that they get to, as I said, put the cement down and build on the team rather than having to be in the fire immediately.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, that's Division 3. Looking at Division 4, firstly, Wicklow beating Carlow 2-18 to 2-14. We'd London, who got beat by Longford 112 to 16 points. Big win for Wexford. They beat Waterford 2-17 to 11 points. And then we did have the last game there as well. Limerick 221, Tipperary 3-8. So big results there. Obviously, Wexford and Wicklow still have to play each other with that game. But if we look at the Division 4 table and how kind of things are looking on the L screen there, Wexford are top with 8 points. I think they have a game in hand. So that's them surely settled and promoted. You've got Limerick in second with 7 points. Wicklow are there with 6. Tipperary 5. Longford with 5 points. London, Carlow 4 and 3. Waterford down the bottom with 0. So again, it's still all to play for there as well.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. I think, look, Wexford definitely are going up, and the form that they've had, especially given last season when, they were known for being inconsistent. John Hegarty came in last season, the only 2 teams that they lost to in Division 4 were the 2 teams that got promoted. And you look at Limerick and Wicklow have been pretty inconsistent, but Limerick, I think, will probably, it all comes down to that game. Wicklow and Limerick, it all comes down to that game as to who joins Wexford. I think that's fairly straightforward. I've been really disappointed by Waterford. I looked at last season, Paul Shanky came in, they got that famous win over Tipperary in the Munster Championship, and they seem to be making some real strides, but it all seems to have gone crashing back down to 0 this season, and which is unfortunate because I was enjoying seeing them go from strength to strength. And yeah, it's difficult to know kind of how they can get back to where they were.
Yeah. I know that a few players in the Sigerson Cup and everything else, you're expecting maybe a little bit of a push. You were hoping for that anyway. It hasn't quite happened. I think with Carlow as well, there's probably been a bit of disappointment there. You were hoping for a little bit more of a push under Shane Curran coming in. That hasn't quite happened either. Mikey says here the 2 teams who were relegated last year now competing for one spot to go back up, in terms of the likes of Wicklow and Limerick in there. But in terms of player of the week and moment of the week, before we finish up, what would you be thinking?
Player of the week, it's difficult. Player of the week, I would probably say Owen Frayne. He's really, really good for Meath. Or Barry McCambridge. That was fantastic for Armagh. Moment of the week, first ever buzzer beater in Gaelic football.
No, 100%. Yeah, no, I think player of the week. I think I'd probably go with Shane Walsh. To be fair, he was outstanding for Galway. In terms of moment of the week, hard one to really judge. I'd probably nearly agree with you. There wasn't really too many big moments. Maybe Clare beating Kildare because look, it was a big win for Clare in fairness, and massive moment for them. Maybe Mayo beating Kerry as well was a huge win for Mayo. But yeah, let us know your thoughts, your opinions in the comments down below. We will be back later in the week for a preview show and everything else. We'll get back on the grind there, and hopefully get the reactions out this weekend as well after a few hectic last few weekends. So anyone who's tuned in, hit the like button and subscribe. Cheers to Seamus for coming on the show. Make sure to check out on Clihit as well when you get a chance, and until the next one, we'll catch you all again soon.